Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have John Phillips, co-founder of Predictit, the stock market of politics. We're going to talk about President Joe Biden and the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and some of the issues they're tackling going into the year end. John, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Hello, Jill. It's good to be back.
All right. President Biden struggling a bit with his ratings. Inflation, number one concern.
It is, inflation and the economy has eclipsed the pandemic as the number one concern for Americans and importantly for American voters. And they don't give the Biden administration very high marks in this regard. His approval ratings are historic lows. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, the impact, as we talk about every week, the popularity of the incumbent and the calculus of members of Congress, especially Democrats, who are looking at a horrible headwind going into 2022. That's factoring into what's happening with certainly with the economy, but it's factoring into what's going to happen with reconciliation, which right now predicted traders think is not going to happen by Christmas or even by the end of the year.
Right. And John, regardless of vaccination status or how you feel about COVID, inflation is something that every American can identify with. I mean, we see it in gas prices. We see it when we go to the food store. I think another, when we think about social issues and how safe people are feeling is also factoring into, how the current administration is feeling. So, it's not too much of a surprise to see that they're struggling with numbers, but I think it's interesting just how much the predicted traders think that the bill will not get passed by Christmas.
It's amazing. Just in the last week, it's dropped another 22 points. It's down the predicted traders only give it a 6%, not 60%, 6% odds of passing by Christmas. And that's down 71 cents from 2 weeks ago. So it's, the economic numbers have really impacted what predicted traders think the likelihood of passage of reconciliation is. And that gets to the size of the bill also, right? Mm-hmm. It started as 3-point-something trillion, and then it's been whittled down and whittled down. The predicted traders are saying at 92% odds that it's going to be less than $1.5 trillion. That's still a lot of money. But, less than 1.5 trillion could also be zero. So that the numbers that predicted traders are assigning to this are continue to diminish. There's a lot of controversy around things like the SALT deduction, the state and local tax deduction, the subsidies for the electric car manufacturers, especially those built in union shops. It's a lot of consternation about that.
And John, what's going on the other side of the pond?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Boris Johnson, who's one of my favorite politicians on the world stage, and a little bit of a disclaimer, I worked in Boris Johnson, his campaign for mayor of London. And so this was it was a long time ago. I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was. And Boris Johnson was I didn't know him, but he was a great candidate, and I put that in quotes. Mm-hmm. There was the famous time when he got stuck on the zip line when he was there to show off the Olympics. And that, of course, caught the imagination of meme creators worldwide. So Johnson, unfortunately for Boris Johnson, it's this love-hate relationship with the British public. He's a lovable winner, but when he's not a winner, they hate a loser. And so what's been happening with him is every possible slight or misfortune sort of sticks to him like Velcro rather than Teflon, which is kind of how politicians like to be. And so there was a Christmas party that you may have heard about. And the Christmas party was in violation of the COVID restrictions, which the Boris Johnson administration had been promulgating for all Britons. And there's a lot of bitterness about that. It reminds me, I don't know about you, Jill, of what happened in California with the recall on Gavin Newsom, mm-hmm. where he hosted a dinner party, or he was a guest at a dinner party, very high-end dinner party in his honor, hosted by some lobbyists. And that became a political issue. Well, same thing happened in the UK with the party. They're calling it Partygate. And Johnson's has been voted by Predictit traders, who now say by 39% odds, he's the next European leader to leave office. This is important because he doesn't even have an election before other runner-ups for that ignominious title of next to leave, including Macron in France, for instance. They think Johnson's going to go. And just over the weekend, that number jumped in double digits. So it's not looking good for Boris.
All right. Definitely interesting politics in the UK for sure, and certainly here in the US. John, pleasure to speak with you as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thanks, Jill.